All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're unpacking the concept of youth welfare. We'll be looking at some really fascinating source materials to trace how this idea evolved, starting from its local roots with some seriously robust programs in Bangladesh, and scaling all the way up to massive global frameworks. It's basically a deep dive into exactly how societies decide to invest in their future.
Here's our quick roadmap. We'll define the concept of youth welfare, dig into its history and key programs in Bangladesh, look at the American Great Depression as a massive catalyst, check out youth development in India, and wrap up with global initiatives. Let's get to it.
Starting off with Section 1, the concept of youth welfare.
Before looking at actual policies, we really need to nail down what youth welfare actually means in practice. The source material gives us this fantastic definition from scholar M.D. Ali Akbar. He says it's meant to offer young people various opportunities in their leisure time that are complementary to home, school, and work. I love this because it perfectly sets our foundation. It's not about replacing parents or school. It's about maximizing that open leisure time so a young person can really discover their own physical, mental, and spiritual potential.
This comparison brilliantly illustrates the dynamic. On one side, you've got formal schooling, structured, academic, institutional. But according to the Encyclopedia of Social Work in India, youth welfare steps into the gaps. It caters to those mental, moral, and physical needs that standard curriculums just don't cover. It is literally the essential bridge between just learning facts and becoming a well-rounded citizen.
Moving to Section 2, History within Bangladesh. Let's see how this played out in a nation with a super vibrant history of youth engagement.
This didn't just happen overnight. Look at this progression. Way back in 1954, the V-Aid program started organizing youth clubs centered around agricultural development. Fast forward to 1966, and the Jatiya Tarun Sangha brings a true national structure into the mix. By 1978, the government realized just how crucial this demographic was and officially launched the Ministry of Youth Development, and that ultimately paved the way for a totally comprehensive national youth policy in 2003.
Section 3. Key programs in Bangladesh. So, with a dedicated ministry actually in place, what does this look like on the ground? Well, the first thing you have to understand is the sheer mind-boggling scale of this. The original texts highlight that these programs are designed to guide a youth workforce of nearly 43 million people. I mean, just imagine the logistics of trying to channel the energy of 43 million young adults into productive, nation-building activities.
To actually manage a number that massive, the initiatives are broken down into specific buckets. There's a huge focus on vocational training, both in fixed centers and through mobile units that literally drive out to the communities. You've also got robust credit programs for poverty alleviation and self-employment, family-based employment support, and crucially, awareness building on things like public health, environmental protection, and civic duty.
And what's super interesting is the incredible diversity of that vocational training. It is absolutely not a one-size-fits-all approach. Based on what the local economy actually needs, a young person might learn computer graphics, or refrigeration repair, or even specialized agriculture like poultry and dairy farming. The end goal is incredibly practical. Turn that unused leisure time into real, marketable skills.
On to Section 4, America's Great Depression Catalyst. Bangladesh is a great modern blueprint, but let's rewind and look at a historical crisis that basically forced governments to formalize youth welfare.
The source data here paints a picture of a total economic collapse. Check out these numbers. Unemployed youth skyrocketed from 2.9 million in 1929 to 4 million the next year, and then literally doubled to 8 million by the spring of 1931. The text explicitly notes the despair and frustration of this generation. We're not just talking about an economic dip here. This was a profound social crisis that threatened to completely derail an entire generation.
So, facing an absolute emergency, the U.S. government rolled out two massive relief policies. First up, the Civilian Conservation Corps, or the CCC. This took unemployed, unburied youth between 17 and 25 and put them to work in forestry and conservation. Then you had the National Youth Administration, the NYA, which stepped in to provide part-time jobs and financial aid specifically designed to keep kids in school so they wouldn't drop out and compete for the very few jobs available to adults.
There's this fascinating detail in our sources about the CCC camps. These young workers were paid a vital lifeline of exactly $30 a month. Now, $30 might sound like nothing today, but back then, it was pure survival. And in exchange, they fought forest fires, built state parks, and planted millions of trees. It was a brilliant, pragmatic solution, providing health, discipline, and income to the youth, while simultaneously rebuilding the nation's natural resources. All right, heading back to Asia for Section 5, Youth Development in India. Let's see how the world's second-largest population tackles this.
India's approach is really unique. First off, their national youth policy casts a super wide net, defining youth as anyone between 13 and 35. But what really stands out is their emphasis on integrating patriotism, cultural heritage, and national security right alongside standard career guidance. They even actively promote an adventurous spirit, incentivizing it with major national honors like the Tenzing Norgay National Adventure Award.
And to actually pull off these massive nationwide objectives, India relies on heavy institutional support. Organizations like the Nehru Yuva Kendra and the Bharat Scouts and Guides do the heavy lifting to translate these high-level national goals all the way down to the local community level.
Which brings us to our final stop, Section 6, Global and International Initiatives. We've seen individual countries, but how do massive international groups like the Commonwealth and the UN handle this?
Okay, this is genuinely fascinating. Data from the Commonwealth Secretariat proves that the very definition of youth is entirely subjective. There's no universal biological standard here. Looking at the breakdown, Singapore caps youth at age 30, Bangladesh goes from 18 to 35, and Malaysia defines youth all the way up to 40, meaning, depending on where you live, some of us might still qualify as youths. It's completely tailored to each nation's specific socioeconomic needs.
And if you track the historical data across these member states, you can actually watch a massive wave of formalized youth welfare initiatives sweep across the globe from the 1960s right through the 1990s as exploding populations demanded a structured response.
Bridging all these nations together, the United Nations has consistently stepped up its focus. They started with a declaration of peace ideals back in 1965, recognized the need for true global coordination, and organized the historic 1998 World Conference of Ministers in Portugal. And all of this culminated in the year 2000 with the World Action for Youth Development. This global framework was a huge shift, heavily targeting economic exploitation, ensuring equal education for young women, and cementing youth welfare as a fundamental human right, globally.
So, we've covered a ton of ground today in this explainer. From local agriculture clubs in Bangladesh, to the Depression-era forests of America, to sweeping UN frameworks. But I want to leave you with this. What specific opportunities exist right around you, in your own neighborhood, to help young people build their future? Because as our sources powerfully show, the way a society shapes its youth ultimately shapes the society itself. Thanks for diving into this with me.